did our work before we went to a public school, it's very, well, it's bad to have children from an institution like that go to a public school, because in the public school the kids say, oh, they're from the home. They're from the home. Orphandom. And, you know, and you feel, I always tried to go around as if I were one of the other kids, you know, and we all were ashamed, you know, to have been from the orphan's home. Well, I was very tall and thin. I was taller than all the... I was as tall as I am now. And very, very thin. Mm-hmm. At 11, things changed. But, and I never grew any taller, but they always said, oh, she's going to be a very tall girl. Oh, in fact, when I was first going, when I first went to the orphanage, and they pulled me in, you know, they took one arm here and they pulled me in, I kept crying, screaming, I'm not an orphan. And then there was a dining room straight ahead, and there were these 100 kids sitting there eating at 5 o'clock. And then a child, you know, you're ashamed to cry in front of other children. So I stopped right away. And then the children filed out and went to the, they were sitting on the porch after dinner. They usually did that on the girls' side. And they all thought I was at least 14. I was so tall. They thought I was going to be in the ad girls. Whoever they were. Well, anything tasted good to me. I always, when I was a child, I ate everything, because the families that I lived with, they said they never saw a child who would eat everything. I'd eat anything. Everything. Oh, there was one other family I stayed with for a short time, but it was only for about 3 weeks. I forgot to mention. Makes 11. I liked singing, athletics, English. I hated arithmetic. I never had my mind on it. You know, I was always dreaming out the window. And then, too, another thing people would remark, not only that I would eat everything, but I never complained when I went to bed. I would even say, I think I'll go to bed now. They say, well, that's very unusual, because children, they say, no, I don't want to go to bed. But what I would do would be to go in my room and, except at the orphan's home, it was different. But otherwise, I would go in my room, and if I had seen a movie, I would act out every part. Only I would act out before that happened, or after, and I would act out all the parts, the men as well as the women. That's what I'd be doing, you know, standing up on my bed, being taller, even. Just the feeling, what he said and what she said and what he felt and she felt, and usually be sad.
How tall are you, Mary? 5'6"?
5'6", exactly.
I'm all right.
Take it easy, boy. She ain't your sister.
Well,
I'm okay.
looks like you've been messing around with the wrong end of the horse, haven't you?
Are you the doctor?
Doctor? I don't want a doctor.
Hold it, boy. I'm no doctor. I'll just clean you up a little.
Isn't there a doctor?
Not for 60 miles. He ain't bad.
How do you know? Let's take him. Come with me. Give me the car.
Now, don't start running things, Ron.
I don't understand. He's your brother.
You all right, is you, Birch? Birch, you all right?
Did I make the whistle?
Almost, boy. You done good, though.
That old horse. He sure was rank, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a real killer. You done good. Leave him alone, Rod. He'll get it.
The next event will be the frame of bull riding. Oh.
No, not yet. You got a couple of minutes yet.
What for?
He's got a bull to ride. Come on, first. Walk yourself around a little bit.
Oh, he's not going in there again.
Well, I guess he just wants to ride that bull.
What?
Yes, let him walk it off, Rod. Come on now.
How are you doing it? Here, take the money we won in the bar. You have to win it. Come on, take it. It's over $100. You don't have to go back in there.
I'm pretty good riding bulls. I want you to watch me, Rosalind.
But why are you doing it?
I put in for it. I entered.
Stop him.
No, how can I? They don't mind getting busted up. They don't even know what you're talking about.
Here's your prize.
She and I were in Beverly Hills. She was shopping for kitchen things at the hardware store. We parked a few blocks from the hardware store and we're walking down Rodeo Drive. And Marilyn was in slacks and a loose blouse and a kerchief over her head and dark glasses. We were talking and walking and then walking, and all of a sudden there was screeching of brakes, and the people who were walking along the sidewalk turned and stared, and the whole world stopped. It was like some big Technicolor spectacular. And I looked around, and there was Marilyn Monroe. Before it had been Marilyn. And then we went on, and the cars started up again. And I turned to her as we were going into the store, and I said, "Did you do that on purpose?" And she said, "You noticed?" I said, "How could I help?" She said, "Well, for some reason, all of a sudden, I wanted to be Marilyn Monroe." And she could turn it on. I got many calls from Marilyn at any time of the day or night, because we had that kind of friendship. She had found that when all else failed, if she had a massage, especially if I massaged her feet, she would fall asleep. And I can't tell you how many times she fell asleep.
But had Marilyn decided to end it all? At 4 p.m. that final afternoon, she took delivery of the shrubs and trees from Frank's home nurseries that she had spent the previous afternoon selecting. She was in the process of completely refurbishing her new home, the first she'd ever owned after over 40 rented suites and apartments. For Ralph Roberts, Marilyn's longtime masseur, these were not the actions of a woman contemplating suicide.
That last weekend, I think she was in better shape than all of those years I'd been around, and she was very excited about having her own house after all. I remember her saying that it's so good laughing again.
Ralph had phoned twice that day. At 6 p.m. he called a third time to confirm their arrangements for supper at her house that evening.
I called her at 6 o'clock, and Greenson answered. She said, "She's not here." It could have been so easily that she was busy, which I would have accepted. She's not here. It would be easier to believe that she committed suicide, but I don't. I think somebody done her in.
The official version of her death changed so many times that it fairly shouted cover-up. This is Jack Clements, a 15-year veteran of the Los Angeles Police Department, now retired. He was the first cop on the scene at the death house. Inexplicably, Clements was called to the house 4.5 hours after Marilyn Monroe was reportedly found dead.
Marilyn was stretched out, face down, in a soldier's position, catty-corner of the bed. Obviously, she'd been placed in that position. And I was shown the nightstand by her table, by her bed, and it was about 8 or 10 empty bottles that had contained medicine, all barbiturates. Dr. Greenson said she must have swallowed them all. I looked in the bathroom for a half-empty glass or a glass that had been used. There was none. I asked for, had anybody seen a document, any written statements, and no one had seen any written statements. There was no suicide note, and the only thing we had there at that time was some empty bottles.
And when you got to the house, who let you in?
Mrs. Murray, the housekeeper. She became very concerned and called Dr. Greenson, who lived just a few minutes away.
And what, if anything, did you ask Dr. Greenson?
I asked, since this all occurred shortly after midnight, and the call came to me at 4:25 a.m., I asked why it took 4 hours to call the police.
What was the response, if any, from Dr. Greenson?
Well, Dr. Greenson finally spoke up, and he said they had to get permission from the publicity department of the studio before they could notify anybody.
Do you have any theory as to what happened in this instance?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
Marilyn Monroe was murdered.